The Great Hall of Vesser Prime was made of living crystal that sang when the light touched it. 12 species had built this place 10,000 years ago, and for 10,000 years they had kept peace across the galaxy. The Galactic Council believed they understood all things. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched young species destroy themselves and old species fade into dust. They thought nothing could surprise them anymore. They were wrong about humans, Counselor. Veth of the Alari stood before the assembled leaders, his pale blue skin glowing with nervous energy. He had spent 3 years studying the strange species from the distant arm of the galaxy. Now he would share what he had learned. The humans are a curious case, Veth began, his voice echoing through the crystal chamber. They have existed for only a short time by our standards. Yet they have already spread to 40 worlds. Their technology advances at a speed we have never seen before. High Counselor Mora, an ancient being made of living light, flickered with interest. Tell us of their nature, young Veth. Are they builders or destroyers? Veth pulled up images that floated in the air above the council. Pictures of human cities appeared. Beautiful towers of glass and steel. Gardens that covered entire buildings. Children playing in parks while their parents watched with smiling faces. They are builders, Veth said. But their history is strange. They have fought more wars among themselves than any species we have ever recorded. Their past is soaked in blood. Brother against brother. Nation against nation. They have weapons that could burn their own world to ash. The council murmured with concern. A species that fought itself was dangerous. Such species usually destroyed themselves before they ever reached the stars. But observe this, Veth continued. He showed new images. Great buildings with the words United Nations carved into stone. Museums dedicated to peace. Monuments that said never again in hundreds of human languages. Treaties signed by world leaders. Organizations built to prevent war. They've learned to fear conflict, Veth explained. They build these institutions to stop themselves from fighting. They teach their children that war is evil. They celebrate those who make peace, not those who make war. I believe they are a species that has been traumatized by their own violence. They are, in simple terms, afraid. High Counselor Mara nodded slowly, light rippling across her form. A species that fears war can be reasoned with. They will not cause trouble for the galaxy. Indeed, Veth agreed. I recommend we approach them carefully. They may be useful allies. Their technology is impressive, and their population grows quickly. But they must be guided. Controlled. We cannot let such a fearful species expand without supervision. The council voted. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would be welcomed into the galactic community, but they would be managed. Their expansion would be limited. Their colonies would be watched, and to show humans their place in the order of things. The council sent the Keth Dominion to claim 3 of humanity's outer colonies. The Keth were a warrior species, proud and strong. They had served the council for centuries, keeping order among younger races. A show of force from the Keith would teach humans to be respectful and obedient, far across the galaxy. On the blue and green world called Earth, Admiral Yoon Do-yeon sat in his office in the Seoul Command Center. He was 60 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face lined by decades of service. He had never fought in a real war. No human alive had. The last great conflict had ended a century ago. Humanity had worked hard to ensure another would never come. But Do-yeon had studied every war humanity had ever fought. He knew the battles of ancient times. He knew the world wars that had nearly destroyed civilization. He knew the smaller conflicts that had burned across the globe for generations. He knew what humans were capable of when the message from the Keth Dominion arrived, demanding the surrender of 3 human colonies. Do-yeon read it in silence. His command staff waited for his response. Commander Park Ji-yeon, his second in command, stood with her arms crossed, her face revealing nothing. They think we will simply give up our worlds? Asked Lieutenant Kwon Minji. She was young, only 28, and had never known anything but peace. They think we are afraid, Do-yeon said quietly. He set down the message and walked to the window. The Seoul skyline stretched before him, towers of glass catching the afternoon sun. This city had been destroyed and rebuilt 3 times in human history. 3 times humans had burned it down. 3 times they had built it back, more beautiful than before. Are we not afraid, Admiral? Minji asked. Our military has not fought a real battle in 100 years. We have peace forces, not war forces. We train for defense, not attack. Doyen turned to look at her. His eyes were calm, but something dangerous moved behind them. Let me tell you something about humans, Lieutenant. We fear war the way a reformed killer fears the knife in their drawer. Not because we cannot use it, but because we know exactly how well we can use it. We know how natural it feels in our hands. We know how easy it would be to pick it up again. Commander Park Jian stepped forward. What are your orders, Admiral? Doyen was silent for a long moment. Outside, the sun was setting over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. Somewhere in those colonies the Keth wanted to take, families were having dinner. Children were doing homework. People were living their lives, trusting that their leaders would protect them. Contact the Galactic Council, Doyen said finally. Tell them we wish to negotiate. Tell them we have no desire for conflict. Minji looked relieved. So we will give them what they want. No. Doyen's voice was hard as iron. We will give them one chance to understand what they are asking for. If they do not listen, we will teach them a lesson the galaxy will never forget. He turned back to the window, watching the last light fade from the sky. Somewhere out there, an alien empire thought humans were prey. They had looked at humanity's peace movements and seen weakness. They had looked at humanity's fear of war and seen cowardice. They had no idea what they had awakened. The Keth war fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel above the colony world of New Busan. 40 ships, each one a mountain of metal and weapons, arranged themselves in perfect formation. Their hulls were painted with the marks of 100 victories against lesser species. The Keth had never lost a war. They did not intend to start now. Supreme Fang Torek stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the small world below. 40,000 humans lived on that colony. Farmers, engineers, teachers, families, who had traveled across the stars to build new lives. To Torek, they were nothing but insects to be crushed. Scan for defenses, Torek ordered. His voice was like stones grinding together. His officers worked their controls. 12 human ships in orbit. Supreme Fang. Small vessels. Defensive class only. They have an orbital platform with civilian shuttles. No major weapons detected. Torek laughed, a horrible sound that made even his own crew uncomfortable. 12 ships against 40. The council was right. These humans are cowards. He opened a channel to the planet below. Humans of this colony, I am Supreme Fang Torek of the Keth Dominion. By order of the Galactic Council, this world now belongs to us. You have 1 hour to surrender completely. If you resist, we will burn your cities to ash and sell your survivors as slaves. On the surface, Governor Nam Sun-hee received the message in her office. She was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. Before she became a governor, she had served in the military for 30 years. She had trained for battles she hoped would never come. Now those battles had found her. Get me a channel to their commander, she ordered her staff. Her voice was steady. Her hands did not shake. When the connection was made, she looked at the alien face on her screen. Turek was massive, with thick-scaled skin and teeth like knives. He looked at her the way a predator looks at food. Supreme Fang Sun-hee said calmly, I request that you speak with your superiors before taking action. You do not understand what you are asking for. Torek leaned forward, amused. I understand perfectly, human. I understand that your species builds museums about peace. I understand that you teach your children to fear fighting. I understand that you are prey, pretending to be dangerous. We are not pretending, Sun-hee said quietly. We are trying to stay calm. There is a difference. 1 hour, Torek repeated. Then we begin. He cut the connection. In orbit, Captain Baek Jisoo commanded the human defense fleet from her ship, the Indomitable. It was not a warship by human standards. It was built for protection, not attack. But Jisoo knew things about her ship that the Keth did not. She knew what human engineers could build when they were worried about the future. Her orders from Admiral Doyen were clear. Delay the enemy. Do not engage unless fired upon. Give them every chance to turn back. Captain, her tactical officer Han Seojin reported, the Keth are powering weapons. They are targeting the orbital platform. Jisoo closed her eyes for just a moment. The platform was a civilian station. Doctors, mechanics, families waiting for shuttles. 200 people who had nothing to do with this conflict. Open a channel, she ordered. Her face appeared on every Keth screen. She was not a large woman. She did not look threatening. Her voice was soft and clear. Commander of the Keth fleet. This is Captain Baek Jisoo of the Human Defense Force. I am required to give you a final warning. We have feared war for a long time. We fear it because we understand what we become when we embrace it. If you fire on our people, we will not stop fighting until your species exists only in our history books. This is not a threat. This is simply a statement of what we are capable of. Torik's response came immediately. Empty words from a frightened species. He gave the order to fire. The orbital platform exploded in a ball of flame. 200 humans died in an instant. Doctors, mechanics, a young couple who had just gotten married, a grandmother visiting her grandchildren. On the Indomitable. Captain Jisoo watched the explosion through her view screen. Her face did not change. Her voice did not shake. But something in her eyes went cold and hard. All ships, she said calmly. Execute Protocol Gwangju. The 12 human ships had seemed small and harmless. They had been built to look that way. What the Keth did not know was that human engineers always planned for the worst. Every defensive system had an offensive mode. Every shield generator could become a weapon. Every peaceful ship could transform into something terrible. The battle lasted 9 minutes. Jisoo's fleet moved like dancers, spinning between the massive Keth warships with speed that should have been impossible. They did not fight the way the Keth expected. There was no honor in their attacks. No announcements. No challenges. Just cold, efficient destruction. Lieutenant Seojin fired missiles that split into 100 smaller weapons, each one finding a different target. The Keth point defense systems could not track them all. Commander Baek herself piloted the Indomitable through the heart of the enemy formation, so close that the larger ships could not target her without hitting each other. The Keth tried to adapt, but they had never fought an enemy like this. Their warfare was ritual, formal. They announced their attacks and expected their enemies to respond in kind. The humans did nothing of the sort. They were silent, merciless, everywhere at once. When the last Keth warship exploded, Captain Jisoo ordered her ships to stand down. Escape pods drifted through the wreckage. The humans did not fire on them. Let them go, Jisoo ordered. Let them tell their masters what happened here. She looked at the burning debris that had once been 40 warships. 9 minutes. That was all it had taken. Send a message to command, she said quietly. Tell them the battle is over. Tell them we tried to warn them. It's far away on this Prime. The Galactic Council would soon receive reports from the surviving Keth. They would learn that their understanding of humanity had been completely wrong. They would learn that a species which fears war is not the same as a species which cannot fight one. They would learn, but it would already be too late. The crystal halls of the Galactic Council had never known such chaos. Counselors who had not raised their voices in centuries were now shouting at each other. The peaceful beings who had maintained order for 10,000 years were finally experiencing something they thought they had left behind long ago. Fear.COUNCOUNCILLOR. Veth stood before the assembly, his pale blue skin now white with shock. The report from the Keth survivors played on every screen. Footage from escape pods showed human ships tearing through the mighty Keth fleet like wolves through sheep. Ships that had conquered 100 worlds were burning. 40 warships destroyed in 9 minutes by a force 1/3 their size. This is impossible, Veth insisted, though his voice was weak. Our analysis was thorough. Humans fear conflict. They avoid war. They build institutions specifically designed to prevent violence. Your analysis? High Counselor Mara said. Her light form flickering with agitation was clearly incomplete. Before Veth could respond, the great doors of the council chamber opened. Every being in the room turned to look. A human woman walked in. She was small by galactic standards. Her hair was streaked with gray, pulled back in a simple style. Her clothes were plain. Two human guards in ceremonial uniform walked behind her, their faces showing no expression at all. This was Ambassador Shinyonji, the first human to address the full Galactic Council. She walked to the center of the chamber without hurrying. She looked at the assembled leaders of the galaxy, beings who had ruled the stars while humanity was still living in caves. She did not seem impressed. She did not seem afraid. "I am Ambassador Shinyonji," she said. Her voice was calm and clear, reaching every corner of the crystal hall. "I have come to help you understand what happened, and to explain what will happen next if you do not change your approach." High Counselor Mora leaned forward. "Explain then, Ambassador. Explain how a species that fears war just destroyed the finest fleet in our dominion." Yunji nodded slowly. "You saw our peace movements and thought us weak. You saw our war memorials and thought us traumatized. You saw our treaties and organizations and thought we were desperate to avoid any conflict." She paused, looking around the room. "You failed to ask the obvious question." "What question is that?" Counselor Veth demanded. "Why does a species develop so many ways to prevent war?" Yunji asked softly. "What are they so afraid of?" Silence fell over the council. No one had an answer. "We are afraid of ourselves," Yunji continued. She pressed a device on her wrist, and images appeared in the air around her. Images from human history. The counselors watched in growing horror. Cities burning. Soldiers marching into battle by the millions. Bombs falling like rain. Nuclear fire rising in mushroom clouds over cities of innocent people. Concentration camps. Mass graves. Weapons that could poison the land for generations. Chemical attacks that left soldiers screaming as their lungs dissolved. "In 200 years," Yanji said, "we went from riding horses to splitting atoms. We invented flight, and then we used it to burn entire countries. We discovered nuclear power, and we immediately turned it into a weapon. We killed more of our own kind in single conflicts than most species lose to extinction events." She changed the images. Now they showed something different. People rebuilding cities. Doctors treating the wounded. Leaders signing peace treaties. Children visiting museums to learn about the horrors of the past. "We developed a concept called total war," Yunji explained. "The complete mobilization of a civilization for the purpose of destruction. Every factory builds weapons. Every citizen supports the fight. Every resource goes to victory. No mercy, no limits. We invented this. We perfected it. And we used it against ourselves." Counselor Veth looked sick. "But your modern culture is so peaceful." "Because we looked into the mirror and saw monsters," Yunji said. "We saw what we could become when we stopped holding back. And we were terrified. So we built walls around ourselves, rules, laws, institutions, reminders everywhere that war is evil. Because we needed to remind ourselves every single day." She looked directly at High Counselor Mara. "You saw a species that fears war and thought that meant we could not fight? You were wrong. We fear war the way a reformed killer fears their own hands. Not because we are weak, because we know exactly how strong we are. We know how easy it is to become the monsters we used to be." "The Keth were supposed to be a message," Mara said quietly. "A show of strength to keep your expansion under control. And instead, you woke something up," Yunji replied. "Something we have spent centuries trying to keep asleep." She stepped closer to the council. "You have a choice now. You can send more fleets, more armies, more warriors, and we will destroy them all. Not because we want to, not because we enjoy it, but because when something threatens our people, the cage opens and the monster comes out, or," Counselor Veth asked, "or you can apologize. You can return our colonies. You can recognize us as equals and negotiate in good faith. Yunji's voice was sad. We do not want war. We have never wanted war, but we are very, very good at it. And once we start, we do not know how to stop. That is the truth about humanity. That is what you should have learned before you attacked us. The council was silent for a long time. Finally, High Counselor Mora spoke. We need to discuss this. Your words require consideration, Anju nodded. Consider quickly. The Keth Dominion is already calling for revenge. They do not understand what they are facing. If they attack again, there will be no warning shots, no survivors to carry messages. She turned and walked toward the door. At the threshold, she stopped and looked back. We built monuments that say never again in 100 languages. Not because we are victims, because we are the danger. Remember that when you make your decision. She left the council in silence. The crystal halls had stopped singing. Even the lights seemed dimmer. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council truly understood fear. The Keth Dominion did not listen to warnings. They did not consider diplomacy. Their pride was wounded, and their rage demanded blood. Within 3 months of the defeat at New Busan, they had assembled the largest fleet in galactic history. 2,000 warships. 5 million soldiers. Enough firepower to burn 100 worlds to dust, Supreme Fang Korath. Older brother of the fallen Tauric, stood at the head of this great armada. He had sworn an oath to destroy humanity completely, not conquest. Not submission, extinction. They killed my brother with tricks and cowardice, Korath announced to his captains. We will show them what true warriors can do. We will teach the galaxy that the Keth are not to be challenged. The fleet crossed into human space like a wave of steel and fire. Admiral Abundoyan received the reports on the command station Sajong the Great, orbiting Earth. He looked at the numbers. 2,000 enemy ships. The human fleet had 300 vessels total, spread across 40 colony worlds. His officers waited for his orders. Some were afraid. Others were eager. All of them trusted their admiral completely. They believe numbers will save them, Dojan said calmly. They will learn that numbers are just a measurement of how much can be lost. He broadcast a message to all humanity. His face appeared on every screen across human space. The enemy comes with overwhelming force, he said. They expect us to meet them in open battle. They expect us to fight the way they fight. Straight lines. Formal challenges. Honor and glory. Paused. We are not going to do that. We are going to fight the way our ancestors fought. The way we learned through thousands of years of war against ourselves. They want a battle. We are going to give them a nightmare. The human response was not what the Keth expected. There was no great fleet waiting to meet them. No glorious battle where Korath could prove his strength. Instead, the humans scattered like shadows, and the nightmare began. Commander Park Jian led a ghost fleet of 50 ships that never stayed in one place. They would appear behind Keth lines, destroy supply vessels and communication ships, then vanish before anyone could respond. The Keth sent squadrons to hunt her. Those squadrons never returned. Lieutenant Commander O'Hedgen specialized in what humans called special operations. His teams landed on Keth-occupied worlds in the dead of night. They destroyed fuel depots. They poisoned water supplies. They spread chaos and fear among soldiers who had never known such things. The Keth would wake to find their weapons sabotaged and their officers dead in their beds. Colonel Utihi commanded ground forces that refused to fight fair. When the Keth landed troops to secure a world, they found no armies waiting. Instead, they found traps. Explosives hidden in abandoned buildings. Snipers firing from mountains kilometers away. Soldiers who attacked in small groups, killed quickly, disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. The Keth had never experienced anything like this. Their warfare was ritual, clean. Both sides lined up, announced their intentions, and fought until one side surrendered. This was not war as they knew it. This was something darker. Something that never ended, that never let them rest. That treated every moment as an opportunity for violence. The great fleet of 2,000 ships slowly began to shrink. not through grand battles, but through 1,000 small cuts. A supply ship destroyed here. A command vessel assassinated there. Engines sabotaged. Communications jammed. Soldiers found dead with no explanation. On the colony world of Scylla Station. The Keth finally cornered a human force they could fight directly. 300 soldiers under Major Choi Yuri defended a civilian settlement of 10,000 people. The Keth sent 15,000 warriors to crush them. The Keth commander sent a message to Yuri. You have fought well for such a small force. But this is over. Surrender now, and your people will be treated with honor. Yuri was 35 years old. She had been a schoolteacher before joining the military. She had never imagined she would be a soldier, much less a commander in a galactic war. But war had come to her people, and she had discovered something about herself that she had not known before. She was very good at hurting things that threatened what she loved. Response to the Keth commander became legendary across the galaxy. You have cornered us. You have cut off our retreat. You have left us nothing to lose. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. You have made a very serious mistake. The siege of Scylla Station lasted 3 weeks. Every day the Keth attacked. Every day they lost more soldiers than they killed. Yuri's forces used every trick humanity had developed across millennia of warfare. Hidden tunnels, fake positions, booby traps that turned entire buildings into weapons, night raids that left Keth soldiers afraid to sleep. When ammunition ran low, they used captured Keth's weapons. When those ran out, they made explosives from industrial chemicals. When the explosives ran out, they fought with knives and rocks and bare hands. The Keth commander could not understand it. By every calculation, the humans should have surrendered long ago. They were outnumbered, outgunned, without hope of rescue. Yet they kept fighting as if they had already accepted death and simply wanted to take as many enemies with them as possible. On the 15th day, arrivements finally arrived. A fleet led by Captain Beak Jisoo broke through the Keth blockade and landed. Fresh troops. What they found shocked even the hardened soldiers. The Keth army was shattered. 15,000 warriors reduced to a few thousand survivors, demoralized and afraid. And still fighting, still holding the line, were Major Choi Yuri and her remaining 30 soldiers. Bloody, exhausted, many of them wounded. But still fighting, Jisoo walked through the ruined settlement to where Yuri stood. The Major's uniform was torn and stained. Her face was cut and bruised. But her eyes were still alert, still watching for threats. Major Yuri, Jisoo said softly, "It's over. You can rest now." Yuri blinked, as if coming out of a dream. She looked at her soldiers, the 30 who had survived, and something in her broke. Not in a weak way, in a human way. Tears began to fall down her dirty face. "We held the line," she said. "We held it." Behind her, 10,000 civilians emerged from the shelters where they had hidden for 3 weeks. Men and women, children, old people, all of them alive because 300 humans had refused to give up. The news of Scylla Station spread across the galaxy. The Keth Dominion, already weakened by months of shadow warfare, finally began to understand what they were facing. This was not a species that could be beaten through numbers. This was something else entirely, something that would never stop, something that would never surrender, something that would burn the galaxy down before it let its people be harmed. For the first time, the mighty Keth began to feel something they had never felt before: fear. The war did not end with a great battle. There was no final confrontation where heroes clashed and destiny was decided. Instead, the Keth Dominion simply collapsed. Like a building that had been burning from the inside for too long, their economy was destroyed. Their military was shattered. Their population, once proud and confident, now lived in fear of shadows. Every night they wondered if human soldiers were hiding in their cities. Every morning they counted the ships that had been lost while they slept. Supreme Fang Korath died not in glorious combat, but from an explosion in his own flagship. Human special forces had somehow infiltrated a vessel that was supposed to be completely secure. They left no trace except a small note written in the Keth language. It said simply, "We warned you." When the Keth Council finally sent their request for peace, humanity accepted immediately. There were no harsh demands, no humiliating terms. The humans asked only that their colonies be returned and that the Keth never threaten their people again. This confused the galaxy more than anything else. A species capable of such terrible warfare offering mercy to a defeated enemy, it did not fit the patterns they had expected. On Thesra Prime, the Galactic Council assembled for the most important meeting in 10,000 years. The war was over, but something had changed forever. The galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. High Admiral Yoon Doyon led the human delegation. He had been promoted after the war, though he had never sought the title. He was an old man now, tired from 2 years of conflict that had tested everything he believed about his species. With him came Commander Park Jian, whose ghost fleet had become legend. Ambassador Shin Youngji, who had tried so hard to prevent the war before it started. And Major Choi Yuri, the hero of Scylla Station, whose name was now known across the galaxy. High Counselor Mora welcomed them into the crystal chamber. Her light form was dimmer than it had been 2 years ago. The war had aged even ancient beings like her. "We have studied the conflict," Mora said. "We have revised our understanding of your species, but we confess there are things we still do not understand." Admiral Yoon nodded politely. "What would you like to know? Your soldiers at Scylla Station?" Mora turned to look at Major Yuri. They could have surrendered at any time. The Keth offered them honorable terms. They would have been treated as prisoners, not slaves. Why did they fight to the last? Yuri stepped forward. The scars on her face had healed, but they were still visible. Reminders of 3 weeks that had changed her forever, because there were civilians behind us, she said simply. Families, children, people who trusted us to protect them. As long as we could hold a weapon, those people were not yet lost. But the mathematics of it, Counselor Veth said. 300 against 15,000. The logical choice was surrender. We don't calculate like that. Yuri's voice was soft but firm. We can't. When we start seeing our own people as acceptable losses, we become something worse than whatever we're fighting. The council was silent. Trying to understand, Ambassador Shin Youngji stepped forward. You called us prey. You thought our fear of war meant we would crumble when faced with it. You did not understand what you were seeing. She looked around the chamber at beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Every monument we build to peace is a reminder, not of how much we hate war, but of how easily we fall into it. How natural it feels when someone threatens what we love. How good we are at it when we stop holding back. She paused. We build those monuments the way a reformed killer surrounds themselves with pictures of their victims. Not because they are weak, because they are terrified of their own strength. High Counselor Mora flickered slowly. What would you have us do now, Ambassador? Learn from this, Yoonji said. We do not want to be your enemies. We never wanted to be anyone's enemies, but we will not be pushed aside. We will not be managed. We will not be treated as lesser beings simply because we are young. We offer you full membership in the Galactic Council, Mora said. Equal status with all elder species, a permanent seat in this chamber. Admiral Yoon bowed his head slightly. We accept. And we hope this is the beginning of true peace between our peoples. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Counselor Veth approached Major Yuri. He moved slowly, as if afraid she might attack him. She simply waited, her face patient. I must ask one question, Veth said. At Scylla Station, when you were surrounded, when death was certain, when there was no hope of rescue, were you not afraid? Yuri considered the question carefully. Memories of those 3 weeks flashed through her mind. The blood, the screaming, the endless nights when she thought the morning would never come. Of course I was afraid, she said finally. Fear is what keeps humans sane. It's what stops us from becoming the monsters that live in our history books. But you fought anyway. Yes. She looked at the alien counselor with eyes that had seen too much. Because being afraid and stopping are 2 different things. We learned that lesson a long time ago. She walked away, leaving Veth alone with his thoughts. Outside the council chamber, the human delegation gathered in a garden of crystal flowers. The light of 3 suns made everything glow like a dream. Commander Park Ji-yeon stood beside her admiral, looking out at the alien sky. Do you think they truly understand now? Admiral Yoon was silent for a long moment. I think they understand enough. They know not to threaten us again. They know we are not prey. That will have to be sufficient. And us? Gi-yeon asked. What do we do now? The old admiral smiled, though there was sadness in it. We go home. We rebuild what was damaged. We mourn those we lost. And we work very hard to put the monster back in its cage. Major Yuri joined them, her expression thoughtful. Will it work? Can we really go back to being peaceful after everything that happened? We have to try, Admiral Yoon said. That is what makes us human. We know what we are capable of. We know the darkness that lives inside us. And every day, we choose to be better. That choice is the only thing that separates us from the monsters in our past. The human delegation left Thesser Prime as heroes, though none of them felt heroic. They had done terrible things to protect their people. Necessary things. But the weight of it would stay with them forever. Across the galaxy, the story of humanity spread. A species that feared war not because they were weak, but because they knew their own strength. A species that built monuments to peace as warnings to themselves. A species that, when pushed, became something even the oldest civilizations had never imagined. The Galactic Council had learned a truth that would reshape their understanding of the universe. Some species fear war because they cannot fight. But some species fear war because they know better than anyone exactly what happens when they stop being afraid. Humanity was the second kind, and the galaxy would never forget it.